Thank you, Bishop Rachel. Thank you, Bishop James, ladies and gentlemen. I was asked to speak a bit on behalf of long-term prisoners, which, as you can imagine, is quite a difficult thing to do. They are very different, myriad different personalities, myriad different sets of circumstances. So I was encouraged to try and think about imprisonment, actually, and what that's about. And I came up with 4 things. So I came up with public protection. Public protection is at the centre of what imprisonment is for. Removing those people who have hurt society, who have broken laws, and keeping the public safe from them. And, you know, we talk about public protection in my world regularly. That's what we think about. But there are 3 other areas that I came up with when thinking about it. So I also thought about punishment. We tend not to talk about punishment as much, but punishment's important. Punishment's important because these people have transgressed against society, they've hurt people, they've broken families apart, and that's not acceptable. So there has to be an element that is about punishing. And punishment is, in terms of the life sentences, the indeterminate sentences that we deal with, the sort of the tariff element, the minimum amount of term spent in custody. And that's the term that Bishop James was talking about, having grown significantly over the past 20 years or so. So I wondered what's changed in society that's made the need for punishment extend and, in fact, double. I didn't come up with an answer to that. Next, I sort of thought about deterrence, because it's also important that there is something that deters people from committing crime. And people often ask about that when they're talking about, does prison work? And my answer, which has changed a bit over time, is it works for some people. So it works for you if you have a good life with things that you enjoy and people that care for you and people that love you. Then the thought of going to prison and being separate from them is a pretty significant deterrent. And I'm sure it will be a deterrent for lots of the people in this room. But there are some people for whom it doesn't act as a deterrent. And there are some circumstances, in fact, talking to long-term prisoners, talking during Bishop Rachel's visit, about whether they were thinking about how long they were going to go to prison for when they did what they did. And the answer almost universally to that was no. So the deterrent effect of prison doesn't impact at the point of committing whatever the offence is. People tend not to be thinking about what's going to happen. Not in 10 years, in 10 minutes. The final bit, which Ray and Vi have talked about so eloquently, is rehabilitation. And rehabilitation is the other part of my work and my world. And it's about encouraging and cajoling and facilitating rehabilitation. It's very difficult to rehabilitate someone. It's very difficult to act upon somebody to change them if that's not what they want. And that's why the last thing I want to mention is so important, and that's hope. So unless you have hope for a better future, for reconciliation, unless you've got some hope for the future, rehabilitation is going to be hugely difficult. You've got to hope for something better. Thank you.